Okay. All praises be to the Most High. Of course, last week, for those who missed it, we went into the memorial blowing of the trumpets and showed that the Most High sound his trumps and all his prophecies are linked in to his high holy days. If we remember the Sabbath, we'll be right on when it comes to everything else we must fall in place with, including his high holy days. Okay? And now we're coming into a time where the last trump has been blown, which will lead into the last 7 of our Jubilee. And there's a lot of things that will happen in between this time. And some people might ask, how did we come to that number? That we at the last 7 of the last 50 or Jubilee. Well, if you have any questions concerning it, you will get the answer today. All right? The Most High have always done things according to the Sabbath, his high holy days. That's why he told us to remember them, to keep them holy, so that we'll be on point in the spirit when Christ returns. So that because all of these will happen on Sabbaths and times. Even people out there who are looking at this from a secular standpoint are wondering, why is there numerology under what the Jewish people are following? Why are they following increments of time when it comes to every year, every 7 years they're doing a certain event? Well, what they're doing is they're copying or trying to mimic the fact that there's a time schedule according to the Most High. So Satan is trying to duplicate what the Most High is doing with his people to dictate their prophecies. But we should be on point with Sabbaths so that we can understand what's going on according to the Most High's prophecies. Therefore, we can resolve not only what they're doing, but what the Most High is doing in the midst of it, and not get thrown off with these false flags and events they create under their Kabbalistic system. It's an evil system, but it still works and it coincides under the Most High's time period. What people must be asking is, what are they counting for? That's the question. Why are they counting? There must be a countdown to something, right? Or they wouldn't try to keep track of time. And you notice that when you look at the Jewish calendars and what things they bring forth, they go into the 5,000th years and they're going into that. And I started to realize, okay, well, based on that, even under their understanding, if the Jewish powers are looking, and I know they're watching us with serious eyes, that would make us into based on what their time schedule, and I did some research on it. But really, this is where we are. 5,993 years from Adam. That's the count. The 6,000 years. There will be a last 50, and then there will be a last 7 from that 50. In the midst of that 7 will be the 3.5 years in which the mark of the beast will be revealed, in which they will cut the system off, destroy the finances and everything, where you will not be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast. And that last 3.5 years are going to be the worst time that this earth has ever experienced. Okay? And the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine 2 lessons, things that I've touched on, but we're going to resolve it today. Okay? Number 1, the 2 lessons we're going to resolve is the fact that there's nothing new under the sun. And the same way they first entrenched a garrison around Masada for 7 years is the global net they're putting on the earth so that it can't travel. Instead of a border around Jerusalem, the whole earth will become Masada. And we did the research, and I looked into the Josephus. You would never guess at what point they began to utterly destroy our people within that 7 years. It was a 3.5 year destruction before we were utterly destroyed. The first 3.5 years we were fine. But that was a pinpoint. There was a time stamp that was actually cutting off for Jubilee, going into the time in which we would now be in the last 7 years, in which not only, keep in mind, as I mentioned before, that 7 years in Masada was a microcosm for what the Roman Empire would actually bring forth on the whole earth. Because they couldn't destroy all of us, all the children of Israel, in 70 AD. You had 10 of the tribes already in the Americas reprocreating without anyone doing anything to them. Mass in number. Okay? Then you had those who took heed to Christ's prophecies. And when they seen the destruction coming, those that was following Christ ran into Africa and into the wilderness. Right? So they can't do it like they did it before. They can't just look at one area and close it off in hopes of destroying the children of the Most High. Now they must do what? They must do it over the whole earth, because Israel has been scattered throughout the whole earth. So that's the whole point. So how can they put a Masada grid over the whole earth? And they're ticking down their time and dealing with their time, knowing that they only have a certain number or amount of time to accomplish this. So they must do 70 AD all over the earth, and they're limited in how much time they have to do it. So if you're wondering why there's false flags, attacks, and all these things going on where they're looking to take the guns and all this, it's a militarization of the world powers and the world military to come against the children of God for the last time, which will mean a mass extermination of our people throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay? So the Most High put a spirit on us, and it started with my conversation that I had in my class with talking to this people this coming Thursday. People I was speaking to in California. Okay? The Most High have us blowing the trumpet on the memorial, blowing the trumpets, and letting us know that it's no time for no arguments, no times for debates, no time to go back and forth. That time has passed. We send the message the Most High wants us to send. We close the book, and then those that will believe will follow what's right. Those who don't believe it or think something is wrong with it or think that it can be debated, it's not for them. You will not see this church going forward arguing and debating points. We here to blow the trumpet and bring forth what the Most High say. And for those that have an ear, let them hear. And for those who don't want to listen, let them deal with the perils that come with it. The time of patience is done when it comes to the futile arguments that don't lead to edification. Which means we're not going to be talking about whether or not the earth is flat or round. We're not going to be talking about all these futile small points that don't lead to salvation and edification and preparation for the coming of our Lord and Savior. We will sound the trumpet. We'll let our people know what time it is. And those that are righteous will stand in the holy place and understand. Okay? He gave certain people in this earth eyes to see and ears to hear. To the rest, it ain't given. It's not given. So it's like you arguing and going back and forth with a brick wall. Okay? If people's eyes, if they don't want to open their eyes or open their ears, this is not for them. They can't hear the sound. Okay? So let's go. Let's go to Revelations, the first chapter. I'm going to show you how we know where we are in time. And we're going to go into the Josephus and link it up to show you that the same thing happened in the past is about to happen again in our last 7 years before a serious judgment within this earth. And again, this count it's speaking of is not speaking of or talking about 7 years of knowing when Christ will return. No man know the day or the hour. Let's make that clear. That last 7 year is a cutoff time that leads to the destruction of those that were bound in Hades. There will still be time on this earth under this system after that. So now they got the CERN collider and other things they're working with to try to release these spirits, because these spirits know that they will be judged at a certain time. Talking about the fallen ones that are bound. So even after that happens, there's still a little time that we need to be saved out of. Okay? So the 7 years, I have to make this clear, because if you don't put things clear, others will make their own assumption that we're now prophesying when we know exactly when Christ will come. All right? And I want to put that out there. Even though we know what it is, you have people look at it and they'll just add something we didn't say. Okay? We're talking about a Jubilee count here that leads to a judgment of those that were bound. There's still some time after that. All right? Now, read what you have in Revelations, where it talks about he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day.
Revelations chapter 1, verse 9. I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation and in the kingdom and patience of Yeshua the Anointed,
yes,
was in the isle that is called Patmos for the word of God and for the testimony of Yeshua the Anointed.
So he was banished to the Isle of Patmos for the word of the Most High, for standing for truth. The Romans banished him to an island. Now, ultimately, it was the Most High to show him the end and the revelation or the apocalypse of what would happen in the last jubilees of the earth, in the last days. Okay? But ultimately, the Romans didn't want to kill John, because they realized the more martyrdom they created, the more of Christ would spring up. So they didn't want to make John a martyr, being so popular, because he was so popular. They didn't want to turn the sentiments of the people against the Roman Empire. They was afraid of killing him, thinking there would be an uprising on one hand, and the other thing, they had a meeting and say, the more they kill, the more we kill, the more prophets and more disciples are made. So they say, you know what? Let's just banish him. We can't put him in prison, because if he go to prison, he will convert the whole prison and they'll all break out. Let's put him on an island. So the Romans had a decree to throw this man on an island, because the power was in him. Everywhere he went, there was conversion and people come into the Most High. So they put him on an island, the Isle of Patmos. And that's how we got or received the book of Revelations. All right? Now, everything that's going on, even in the scientific community, was shown John almost 2,000 years ago. When I say almost 2,000 years ago, because as we know, we're not really in 2015. That's a time that was actually created so that they can think to change times and laws. Our count is not according to the Romans. Our count is according to the Jubilees that were established in Scripture. We don't calculate like the Gentiles. So we're not under the Gentiles' schedule or time. It's deception. It's deception. The Most High let us know how much time we have, and I'm going there too. So read on. John on the Isle of Patmos. Come on.
Revelations chapter 1, verse 10.
Yeah.
I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day.
On what?
On the Lord's day.
Now we know the Lord's day is what? The Sabbath. So the Most High was showing John the Revelator key information concerning the last days on the Sabbath. So he had to be linked in. He had to be actually dealing with his supplications and prayers on the Most High on the Lord's day to receive this information. See that? And now we understand why the Gentiles, the pagans, switched things and said, well, we're going to move the Sabbath day to Sunday, the first day of the week. Because you're not in connection to the heavenly throne, and therefore you won't receive that information when we should be quiet and reverencing and connecting to the Most High. He was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and what?
And heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet.
He heard a great voice as of a what?
A trumpet.
As of a trumpet. So he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard a great voice as of a trumpet. Now, those who understand the Old Testament realize that the trumps gave us different sounds based on different specific holy days in the Old Testament. All right? And I went to this sound of a trumpet because unless you understand how the trumpets were used, none of us will understand why it's even mentioned concerning a trump or a sound of a trump in Revelations. Who would relate to this trump? Those that had trumps that let them know times of holy days, times of Sabbaths. Now, on the main trump, or what you would call the memorial blowing of the trumpets, they sounded the trumpet longer than any other time of the month on holy days. Why? Because it was getting us in preparation for an atonement 10 days later. So we'll know we have a time to get ourselves together. Now, what is the significance of this? Well, if you look at the trumps, even from the time from Christ all the way down in increments, and we're going to show you how to calculate that, certain events happen in the earth that led to our people examining themselves to change their lives. So now we hear at an end what they call the memorial blowing of the trumpets and going into a 7-year period of total destruction where we must be refined as a people. You understand? If we go further into wickedness, we will be destroyed within this time. So now, the same way we had that trump in the old time, that warning in the old time to get ourselves together, he gave us one in that same clock, that last 50-year clock, leading to a 7-year period of total destruction. You understand? I'm going to show you. It's all going to come together. Stick with me here. Read.
Verse 11, saying...
And another thing, that's why in Revelations, you got 7 trumps. These trumps were on schedules, or are on schedules, leading up to the last trump. Now, if you don't know about the holy days and how the trumpets or the shofar was a part of that, it'll go right over your head. These were actual time periods of holy days, according to the clock the Most High instituted from the beginning, where things would actually happen in the earth. All right? It doesn't have nothing to do with what the Jewish powers and the so-called Illuminati is doing. The Most High have a schedule in which things are happening in this earth. Right? Read on.
Revelations 1 and 11.
Come on.
Saying, I am Alpha and Omega.
That means beginning and end. Ah and Tha. So there's a beginning and there's a what? An ending. I am Ah and Tha. Read.
The first and the last, and what thou seest, write in a book.
He says, what you see, what I'm about to show you, John, and this was Yeshaya showing John. What I show you, write in a book. Go on.
And send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot.
Now the seven candlesticks represents the light, or the 7 angels that was protecting or over each church. And within the midst of the 7 candlesticks, he seen one like unto the Son of Man. Read.
Clothed with a garment down to the foot.
Read.
And girt about the paps with a golden girdle.
Come on.
His head and his hairs were white like wool.
The color of white and the texture of wool. Speaking of Christ. Read.
As white as snow.
As white as snow. So this was Christ in the spirit showing John what would happen in the last day. That was the voice he heard behind him. And then when he fell to his knees and he seen Christ's feet. And Christ showed him all the things that would happen going forward. There will be trumps or time spans of trumps that will lead to the judgment of this world and the rising of the Most High's people. Now, how do we calculate that? Now, of course, you've all seen the thing we did with the Secrets of the Times in New York, but we're going to make it a little simpler for you, where you can all calculate and understand it. We're going to go into Revelations. We're going to go into John. We're going to go into Revelations, John, Daniel, a few other scriptures to give you some understanding, to give everyone understanding on what time we're in. All right? And show you how that links to the last 7 years, like we had the last 7 before we were destroyed in Rome. Okay, are you with me? All right. So, let's go back to Adam. Let's go to our father Adam first. I just put him on a leash. Yeah. Let's go into the enmity. We put enmity after Adam's fall. And the reason we're going to start with Adam's fall, the count that we should be calculating in Daniel's and in the books start with the fall of our father Adam. Okay, that's when sin was introduced in the earth. I'm going to show you how we know what that count is. So because of that fall, a certain time would have to go past or go by. Okay? That would lead to the final making of Adam. Okay? So Adam was being made in the beginning, but he wasn't finished due to the fall. So there will be a time period that would accomplish what Adam was supposed to be from the beginning. And that's that change he never received. Why? Because he took of the tree of good and evil and never partook of the tree of life. So now, instead of man becoming that great power and dominion that he was supposed to be from the beginning, it would take time to develop into that and to work towards getting that. And there will be a battle between the sons of God in this earth and the sons of God that fell, that would lead to those who are worthy to receive it. Are you following me? There will be a struggle between good and evil up until that time that Adam take of that tree of life, which is us. Right? Let's read that enmity after the fall of Adam and Eve.
Genesis chapter 3, verse 14.
Come on.
And the Most High Power said unto the serpent,
Come on.
Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go.
Go ahead.
And dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. Verse 15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman.
So he says, he told the serpent, I will put enmity between thee and the woman. Serpent was the spirit of Satan that came in and deceived Adam and Eve and took full dominion of this realm, this earth. The original dominion was given to Adam. Go on.
And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed.
Come on.
And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel.
Come on.
Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow.
Go back to that seed again.
Verse 15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed.
So now you would have two distinct bloodlines in the earth. Two seeds in the earth that would be an enmity one with another. The serpent would have his seed in the earth, and eventually that seed would be an enmity and look to attack the woman's seed, which is the children of Israel. The children of Israel is considered in Scripture the woman of the Most High. He dressed her, he married her, he gave her laws, he protected her. You understand? So Israel as a family is the wife or woman of the Most High. So you have the woman seed, and you would have what? The serpent's seed. That means two distinct families that would fight in the earth for one dominion. the dominion that was lost due to the fall of Adam. So instead of Israel or the people just organically or naturally getting the kingdom by the Most High, they would now have to go through friction because there's a battle between good and evil on who would receive the promises of Abraham. Okay? Now, of course, religion have skewed this point, have totally distorted this point, because they make you think all things are relative and organic, and things, it doesn't have, there's no battle between nations on this earth. Okay? Why? Because they're hiding the fact that those that are ruling the earth are of the serpent seed. There was a battle between Jacob and Esau in Genesis 25 in the mother's womb. There was a battle. That was the beginning of this prophecy being fulfilled, where the head was bruised and the heel. That's when Jacob took hold of Esau's heel. It was showing the family, which is Jacob, who would be of the woman, and Esau, who would actually become the serpent seed. When Esau lost his birthright, when he lost his blessing and birthright, he sold his birthright and lost his blessing. He went to Mount Seir and made a pact with Satan, the Canaanite god, to gain power on this earth, to battle against the woman's seed. Later on, those people, the powers of this earth, who linked their blood, and Esau gave his children to Canaanites, which were seeds of Nephilim. They brought forth a hybrid being in this earth that would work under Satan to destroy the children of the Most High in every which way they could, even through stealth. The agreement, if they would help Satan get to the heavenly realm, he would help them rule this earth and exterminate the children of God. That's that battle between what? The serpent seed and the woman's seed. Okay? Now, after Jacob fell, Esau gained power as the Grecians and Romans. And then that's when they began to persecute Christ and his people, martyred and started killing the disciples, because they knew that these were the people of the promise. Up until the time that they destroyed us in 70 AD, in which our people ran into Africa. So because we don't understand who we are, we don't know that we're in a battle and who is spiritually battling against us. You got that, right? There's an enmity between these two. And there's a clock on how long they will be afforded the time to do this to us. And they know this. If we make it to a certain point that they're trying to cut off, but once we make it to that point, there's no battling against Israel going forward. So they have the time in which they have to rule, which Christ called the time of the Gentiles. It's Gentiles ruling over there in Jerusalem right now. They are the Romans. Okay? They are the serpent's seed, because they link their blood with Canaanites and fallen angels' blood. They believe they're part man and part gods or demigods over the people, and that all people in the earth should serve them. They're the synagogue of Satan. But their time is almost up, and they realize it. So now they're scrambling to create events and things in the earth, and real serious events that they're planning to engage us all over the earth, to try to call us terrorists, to try to do things to us, to try to use the healthcare system to destroy us, to try to use the fear of a boogeyman coming in from the outside to lock people down, to use the financial system against the people, to socialize the whole earth in an attempt to exterminate the Most High's people once and for all. And only those that are in the spirit will realize this and understand what to do. But getting back to the point of how we can calculate how much time we have and where we are, because that's the point. But I wanted to set the stage for what you are about to receive. And understanding that the Most High has given us the times and the time that we have left, so that we'll know how long we have to get it together. And that through this, I'm praying that the Most High will set up a unit within this earth of believers that can help us make it past the 3.5 years within this 7. That's what I'm praying for, and that's what I'm hoping. That through this, the Most High will have a small remnant that can push us over the finish line. And it's not about how many people. We don't want a multitude. We don't care if it's a multitude of people. We came out as a multitude and we were destroyed. A remnant of people with the light and spirit that can help us in a time that we're going to need. We're going to need this. So that when we fall, we have another brother or sister that can pick us up and move us over. So that we can understand how important it is for those who can see. Every man and woman with a responsibility to get us all over there. That's what this is for. You understand? So when the Most High blow the trumpets, it's so that we can resolve what's going on with us. Not only so that we can make it, so that we can help our brothers and sisters get through this. There's no scriptures or anything I can express or say that can let any of us realize how bad the time will be. There's no scripture that I can read that can express what it will be. Okay? But what I can do is go into history and give you an example of what they did to us in 70 AD, in that last 7 years before we were utterly destroyed. And understand that when they did this to us, it was without the technology they have now. So this is serious. You understand? And if we're not in the right place spiritually, no man or woman is going to be able, you understand, to pull someone out that's dealing in sin. If you're dealing in sin, that actually separates you from your own protection. So during this time, we have to be sin-free. Doesn't matter what we did in the past. When the trumpet is blown and it's time for an atonement, it's time for us to examine ourselves and be sin-free, because there's a place in which we can't help you. You understand? Because when you're in sin, you separate yourself. You're gone. You move yourself out of the way. Right? But let's go. Let's go to Genesis 6 real quick. I'm going to get right on it. And you can get a pen and pad and we can calculate this together.
The book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair.
Now this was pre-flood, brothers and sisters. This was before the flood. Now you see the curse that was laid upon the serpent and the woman, leading to their children battling within the earth. Over what? Dominion. Now the Most High is going to show you what came to pass that would lead to that. You had the sons of Cain, who built cities before the flood, dealing with all types of evil and wickedness. Homosexuality, what they call homosexuality, was at its height. They were creating animals and mixing hybrid beings. They was creating dinosaurs and Tyrannosaurus rexes and sea creatures that was killing off the Most High's creatures and began to consume mankind. You had fallen angels who came down and slept with women. And a lot of their children came out hermaphrodites, part male, part woman. Or what you would call transgender. This was all going on. That was the serpent seed developing itself and establishing its power over the earth. Right? Read.
The rest of verse 2.
Come on.
And they took them wives of all which they chose.
So now you got the celestial who came down and began to deal with women and bring forth hybrid beings. Right? Read.
Verse 3. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man.
My spirit shall not always thrive with man. Go ahead.
For that he also is flesh.
Now check this out. Who was the first man? Adam. So that's where the count begins. See, and this is breaking down a mystery. My spirit shall not always strive with man. The first man is Adam. Make sure you document that, right? For his days is what?
For that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years.
120 years. Okay? Now, when you look at the calculations based on what we're bringing forth, a lot of people was teaching, and at one time we were looking into it saying, well, the lifespan is 120 years. Not too many people go past that lifespan, which is correct to some degree. Right? The average people now don't even make it past 70. But this is speaking of a time period that will take away the sins in a judgment from the time of Adam. When you look at that 120 of years, the Most High do his calculations in Sabbaths, and after 7 Sabbaths, the 50th year is a what? A Jubilee. So it's speaking of his spirit shall not always strive with man. The number of his days shall be what? 120 Jubilees. Now I'm going to break it down. That 120 times 50 gives you how many years? 6,000 years. Now we have a count. We have a reason for a clock now, or a countdown. Now we understand why time is calculated. Because the Most High gave us a period. My spirit shall not always strive with man, for his number shall be what? 120 what?
Years.
And we know the Most High calculate years in what? Jubilees. Right? Hold that. We're going back there. I need you to read Jubilees 50 and 5. You can read it from here.
Jubilees chapter 50, verse 5.
Yes.
And after this law I made known to thee the days of the Sabbaths in the desert of Sinai.
Speaking of the time that the Most High gave the law to Moses.
Which is between Elim and Sinai. And I told thee of the Sabbaths of the land of Mount Sinai. And I told thee of the Jubilee years and the Sabbaths of years.
I told you of the Jubilee years and the Sabbath of years. So when the Most High was giving Moses the understanding of time, he was dealing with the Sabbaths and Jubilees of years. See, and that's how you must calculate when it deals with time in the scriptures. No other way. Because the adversary thought to change times and laws. So if you go by anything they're giving, it's going to throw you off completely. It came up to a point where we had to ignore anything they put out there. And just start bare bone just with scripture. And how the Most High said we should examine things. Right? Now, give me Leviticus real quick. (25 and 9).
Leviticus chapter 25, verse 9.
Matter of fact, start at 8.
Verse 8. And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years.
7 times 7 is what? 49. We're going to show you how to calculate a Jubilee. Go on.
And the space of seven Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years.
49 years. Read on.
Verse 9. Thou shalt cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month.
The 10th day of the 7th month. Go on.
In the day of atonement.
Now we know that what's the 10th day of the 7th month? The Day of Atonement. Right? Go on.
In the Day of Atonement ye shall make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you.
It shall be a jubilee unto you. So you have 7 Sabbaths, right? And then you have what? A jubilee year, which rounds off what? A complete jubilee. That's ticking down that 6,000 years. 50 jubilee, 50 jubilee. 7 Sabbaths, then jubilee. That's ticking down a time till that 6,000 is done. That's how Moses and the prophets were able to calculate time and resolve time. Not just off dates and birthdays and all the stuff, the juvenile things we look at time for. It's ticking off the time that mankind would have before the Most High resolved the evil that came to this earth from the beginning. That's what time was created for. It was created for judgment. And we must count it through what? Jubilees, right? So now, we look at that 6,000 years, right? Okay, so how many jubilees do we have in 6,000 years? Come on. Huh? Huh? Thank you. Thank you. Right? So now, we have to break that 120 down now. We have 120, what? Jubilees. Right? Now, not only do we know from Adam there's 120 jubilees, guess who else knows? Satan. So when he set up his system, which they call today the Illuminati, the secret side, all this mess they talk about, talking about Beyonce is in the Illuminati. Anyway, when they set up their system, when they set up this, brothers and sisters, they did that with this clock in mind. So when Satan gave Esau, the Roman Empire, their rule, and you know they reverenced Satan or Zeus as their God the whole time. But when he gave them their rule and says, we're going to reverence you as our God, the architect, right? He says, I'm going to give you information on how long we have here. And with this time, you must destroy these people. Okay? Because of this promise, Satan is afraid. There's a promise that will be fulfilled in which the sons of God rule again under Christ. Which will not only take down the powers of this earth, that we will also end Satan's dominion. So Satan is now working with the Gentile powers to exterminate us all together. Right? Now, let's go back to Genesis. Real quick. So now we got that 6,000 years, and that resolved it with the 120, right? Now I'm going to show you how we break this down. Stick with me.
Genesis chapter 6, verse 4.
Come on.
There were giants in the earth in those days.
When you look in the Hebrew, it says there were giants or Nephilim. Nephilim. So these were hybrid beings in the earth in those days. Right? Now these are hybrid beings. Now according to Enoch, who prophesied of these were giants who were stronger and tall in height. Okay? And they began to consume mankind. Eat people. When we were trying to make bigger, greater foods for them. That's why they started splicing animals, because the regular animals, they were consuming like nothing. So they began to splice bigger animals for food for them, and that wasn't enough. They began to eat people. And in the creatures they created, dinosaurs and all that, these are evil, demonic creatures. None of these were made in creation. They were a mixture between the sea creatures and the cattle and the fowl. And that's where you get your dinosaurs. So the Most High told them, I'm going to destroy not only those who have created this nonsense, this evil on earth. I'm going to destroy all the hybrid animals. And that's when the Most High told Noah to prepare an ark. Okay, and it wasn't 100 million years ago. But go on.
Genesis 6 and 4.
Come on.
There were giants in the earth in those days.
Come on.
And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men.
It says, and also after that, that this event would happen again. So it happened again after the flood too. See? And after that, so when Moses and our brothers and sisters who came out of Egypt began to go into Jericho and spied out the land, they were like grasshoppers compared to the Nephilim that were now in the land again, after the flood. See? That's why he says, and after that. So it happened again. Right? Go on.
When the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown.
Men of renown. Okay, men of high stature. Read.
Verse 5. And the Most High saw the wickedness of man was great, or that the wickedness of man was great in the earth.
Go on.
And that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually.
It sounds like what's going on now, right? That means there's no spirit in this earth unless you're dealing with some righteousness within the Most High. That think about our actions against the Most High. That think when we're about to do something, we don't even put the Most High in it at all, in our thoughts. It was one time we didn't operate at all without first checking on whether or not it's okay with Him. We began to just do whatever we desired and began to follow the fallen ones and deal with our insatiable appetite to fulfill the lust of our flesh. That's what it's speaking of. Same thing today. Okay? And you can look at it and see what's going on in the earth today, and you know it's the same thing. Right? Same spirit. Lying, killing, thievery, fornication, homosexuality, self-adulation, making ourselves idols, not caring about anyone else but ourselves, selfishness. These are all the attributes of the devil that have now filled the earth. Same thing, right? Read on.
Verse 6. And it repented the Most High that he had made man on the earth.
Come on.
And it grieved him at his heart. And the Most High said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air.
And that's why he made a decree that the earth would break apart and flood from within the earth, and the rain would come down, and he would open up the chambers of heaven and just release all the waters into the earth. That's why the flood was decreed. Okay, because of the evil of the earth. If not for this, we would not have made it to the other side. We were being consumed. They were our government. These people, the sons of Cain, became our government. So they was looking to take out anything that was righteous or had a connection with the Most High. They want it done away with. It was unlawful to follow the Most High during the time of Noah. Sounds familiar, right? Come on.
For it repenteth me that I have made them. Verse 8.
Come on.
But the Most High found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord.
Come on.
These are the generations of Noah.
Now, and we know what happened. An ark was created. Noah, his 3 sons, and their wives, 1 wife each, got on the ark. All animals that were created from the beginning by 2, which was unclean, and by 7, which was clean, because you needed 7 for sacrifice. Because these were the animals we would sacrifice to eat and to sacrifice to the Most High. So he made 7 of those. He says, bring 7 male, 7 female clean. 1 male and 1 female unclean. To prove to you the law of cleanliness in animals was instituted before the time of Moses. Okay. Clean animals and unclean. How did Noah know what animals to take on the ark? Because there was a law of what animals men was made to consume from the beginning as a sacrifice to the Most High. Right? So now we cleared that up. Let's go into calculating and understanding the time and resolve the time we're in. Let's go to the book of Daniel. And in connection to that last 7 years, in connection to that, we're going to show you what happened in 70 AD. Go back there. Okay. You with me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go to Daniel's 9. And let's start at 21.
The book of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 21. Yea, whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation.
Now make sure while we go into this, we have that 6,000 written down, because we're counting down that 6,000, right? So Daniel, read it again.
Yea, this is again Daniel's 9 and 21. Yea, whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation.
Go on.
Verse 22. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of my supplications, the commandment came forth, and I came to show thee.
So what day was this? Read that again.
At the beginning of thy supplications,
Go ahead.
the commandment came forth, and I am come to show thee. For thou art greatly beloved, therefore understand the matter and consider the vision. Verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people.
Now hold up now. He's telling Daniel 70 weeks is determined upon the children of Israel, right? 70 times 50 is what? Huh? Come on. 3,500 years, right? So he's telling Daniel 3,500 years is determined upon thy people. Read.
70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression.
To finish the transgression.
And to make an end of sin.
And to make an end of sin. Right? So if we count that, and it says 70 weeks are determined upon our people. Right? To make an end of sin, starting with the sin of Adam, right? That's still some time missing, right? Because that's only 3,500 years. We speak of 600 years, 6,000 years, right? So what time was Daniel calculating from here? Let me show you. Right? It's going to click. Read the book of Jubilees.
Jubilees chapter 50.
50 and 5 on down.
After this law I made known to thee the days of the Sabbaths in the desert of Sinai, which is between Elim and Sinai.
So he's speaking of Moses from Sinai, right? Go on.
And I told thee of the Sabbaths of the land on Mount Sinai, and I told thee of the Jubilee years and the Sabbaths of years, but the year thereof have I not told thee till ye enter into the land which ye are to possess.
Read.
And the land also shall keep its Sabbaths while they dwell upon it, and they shall know the Jubilee year.
Read on.
Wherefore I have ordained for thee the year weeks, and the year and the Jubilees. There are 49 Jubilees from the days of Adam until this day.
There's 49 Jubilees unto Adam till this day.
And 1 week and 2 years.
It says, hold up, so that's 49 what? Jubilees. Read.
And 1 week and 2 years, and there are yet 40 years to come. For learning the commandments of the Lord until they pass over into the land of Canaan, crossing the Jordan to the west.
It says, wherefore I have ordained to thee year weeks in the years of the Jubilees. There are 49 Jubilees from the days of Adam even until this day. 1 week, that's 7, and 2 years, that's 49. And there are yet 40 years to come, for learning the commandments of the Lord until they pass over the land of Canaan, crossing the Jordan the west. When you do this calculation, brothers and sisters, from the time of Adam to the time we received the commandments was 2,500 years. Hold up now. You got 2,500 years from the time of Adam to the time of Moses. Right? Now go back to Daniel.
Daniel chapter 9 verse 24.
Come on.
70 weeks are determined upon thy people.
70 weeks are determined upon thy people. So when you got that 2,500 plus 3,500, how many is that? Right? So when it says 70 weeks are determined from thy people, what time was it starting from? What's the beginning of that 70 weeks? No. When we received the law. The law was the point of doing away with sin of Adam. You see it, right? Look at Zah smiling from ear to ear there. So where they go off in Christianity is try to link that up going forward to a time that a temple was established after the law. That's why they're so confused with this 70 weeks. But you don't know the calculation of the 70 weeks if you don't know about how many Jubilees was determined from the beginning. Now the angel is taking Daniel back to the beginning of that count and showing him where he is and how long it will be. So he says 70 weeks are determined on thy people. That 70 weeks began when we went into the land and received the law. So we have to count that 70 weeks and they will be broken down. You're looking confused right there, right? What you seeing? Okay. Come on. Let's go.
70 weeks.
Yes.
When you calculated that from Jubilees 50 and 5, when we said 49 Jubilees, that week adds, makes it 50, right?
No, what happens is you had 49 up until the time of Moses. Don't forget, Moses didn't go into the land. We went into the land on the Jubilee year, which rounded off that 50.
All right, got you.
See, Moses didn't get in. It was 1 year before. He went set that whole 7 Sabbaths. But he didn't get in. We went in on the Jubilee, so that was a calculation. That was a time. See that? Got it? So that rounded off 2,500 years from the time of Adam, breaking down that 120 days. Right? Because that start with the beginning of sin. You must count from the time of sin of Adam. Right? And now from that sin to us receiving the law was 2,500 years. Which would leave what? 3,500 years. See that? Into that 6,000. What you seeing here, Ron? Okay. Now, when you got that 3,500 years, right? How many Jubilees are determined? Right? 70. Right? 70. You got that? Now, you're going to find that it was 1750 from the time of Moses, the death of Moses, which going into that Jubilee, the time of Moses when we receiving the law, to Christ's birth. Right? 7. Okay. I'm going to show you, and I'm breaking it down. That last 3,500, right? Half of that 3,500 is what? 1750. Right? Half of that would be in between the time that when it's showing you here that 1750, you got 2,500 years from one point, from Adam to Moses. Right? We determined that. There will be another 1750 from the time of us receiving the law to Christ's birth. You got it? And there will be another 1750 left before the judgment of the fallen ones. You got that? So when it comes to calculating times of Jubilees, you can tell we're not in 2015. Because we only have 1,750 years from the time of Christ before the last 7 of that 50. Are you following me here? So we're not in 2015. We're not even in the year 2000. We're not even in the year 1900. We're not even in the year 1800. These were years created during the time of our captivity when we lost track of time and they began to add time during the time of our darkness. We woke up in a whole entirely different year. And that's one thing about programming and teaching slaves. You're teaching from a blank canvas. You in the year they told you were in. Why? You don't know what year you're in. So whatever the master tell you, that's the year you're in. You understand? If you wake up with a blank canvas and someone told you, okay, you wake up and they say, okay, you remember anything? No. Okay, you in the year 5,500. You got that? Here's your calendar. What information you have to dispute that? Then they'll give you history and all that you didn't witness, and you'll believe it happened. Are you with me? Let's get back to this. Let's go back to Daniel.
Daniel chapter 9, the rest of verse 24.
Come on.
In fact, I'll start from the top. It says, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression.
Hold up. Chapter and verse. Give it to me again.
Daniel 9 and 24.
Come on.
70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city, thy holy city,
come on,
to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins.
And to make an end of sins.
And to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
Go ahead.
Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks.
7 weeks, three score, and 2 weeks. So what number is that? 7 and what? Come on, how many is that? 69. Read it again.
Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince,
come on,
shall be 7 and 3 score.
3 score is what? 60
and 2 weeks.
And 2 weeks. So what is that? 69 weeks. Now y'all got that, right? 69 weeks. You got it? Read.
The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous time.
Now let's break down that 69 weeks. How many years we got there? 69 times 50. 3,000 what? 3,450. Right? So that will leave what? That will leave the last 50. That will leave the last 50 of that what? Exactly. And we, at the very end, will be living in that what? Last 50. Are you following it? So now we got a time span to calculate to let us know that this is speaking of those jubilees leading to the last 50. So all this that is speaking of will happen up until that last 50. Right? And in that last 50, the Bible will break down what will happen in the last 7 of that last 50. Are you following me here? So the mistake was Christians was looking at the time of Christ and the time that he was crucified. And they were throwing off this 70 weeks altogether, not realizing that Christ was encompassed in the whole thing. It wasn't just speaking of his crucifixion and cutting it off. It was speaking of his crucifixion, Jerusalem getting destroyed, and him making an end of sins and judging also within that time to take down the evil that began with our father Adam falling to Satan. So that's why they're so confused and trying to calculate this. And they going, well, the missed week must have been Wednesday. No, you have to calculate again. The Bible, you calculate time through what? Sabbaths and jubilees. Are you following me here? So now, we know that based on this time span that was given Daniel, because Daniel was shown everything. He was shown the beginning of sin. He was shown us getting the commandments. And he was shown the end. See, when the Most High was dealing with the prophets like Daniel and Revelations, they were being taken to a space and time to view the earth like the Most High see the earth. They were taken out of the realm to view time. And then that's why it says an angel showed him, Gabriel. He says, at this point, at this jubilee, this is going to happen. At this jubilee, this is going to happen. And this is what's going to happen at that last 50. Now we got 50 left. Right? And this is what's going to happen at the last 7 of that 50. And now let me show you what's going to happen half of that last 7 of that 50. Until the end. Are you following me? This is how you break down and read Revelations. The seal was broken. When the Most High says it, shut up the book until the time of the end, the seal is broken. We can see it for what it is, and it's plain. Okay? Read on.
Verse 25. Know therefore and understand.
Know therefore and understand
that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks.
Go on.
And 62 weeks.
That's 69 weeks.
The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times.
The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. Right? So through all these troublous times, what's going to happen? The Most High people will begin to wake up, begin to understand, begin to come pure, and prepare themselves. It's going to show you. Read.
Verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself.
It says, and after 62 weeks, which is what? After what? 62 weeks. Exactly. Read.
And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood.
And the end shall be with a what?
With a flood, and unto the end of the war, desolations are determined.
And the end of the war, desolations are determined. I'm going to break this all down in a second, speaking of what's going to happen in this last 70. We're going to resolve the whole thing. Follow me. Read.
27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. How long is 1 week? Huh? 7 years. This is the last 7 now. I'm going to show you. Read.
And in the midst of the week.
In the midst of that 7, in the middle of it, 3.5 years. Read.
He shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease.
That's when the mark of the beast will be set up. In the midst of that last 7 years, the daily sacrifice and the oblation must cease. That's our daily food. The only way they can do this is institute a mark of the beast, crash the system where you cannot buy or sell or eat your daily sacrifice unless you bow and receive the mark of the beast. So we know the mark of the beast is going to be instituted within the last 7. The last 7 of the time that was given from the beginning. Read.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
Come on.
And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation.
Even to the consummation. We know according to Enoch and Jubilees, the consummation is the judgment of the fallen ones in the earth. That those that were bound will actually be destroyed at that time. Read.
And that the torment shall be poured upon the desolate.
Now before I go into Daniel to show the time span, right? I'm going to Daniel 11 in one moment. I want to show you what happened in the last 7 during the time of 70 AD. And then we're going to link it and put it all into perspective with our time now. Okay. Now, of course, we went into many studies that we have out there on how in 70 AD, well before 70 AD, a few years before that, Nero burned the city of about 7 to 8 blocks or, parts of the cities of Rome and blamed it on the Jews as a false flag that led to them destroying our people in Jerusalem and in Israel. And what they did was after that time, Vespasian and Titus made a rule amongst themselves in which they would put a garrison or a gate or a border around Masada in Jerusalem and have the armies police our people, Israel, for the first time in Jerusalem. Now, at that time, we had no idea their plan was to utterly destroy us. Those who didn't understand didn't know that. But those who took heed to Christ's prophecies fled into Africa before the fall of our people by the serpent seed, the Roman Empire. Now, I'm saying this because there was a 7-year period that was prophesied at the end of a time period of the Jubilees at that time that most people didn't pay attention to. That would lead to the last 7 that's spoken of in Daniel, in which the mark of the beast will be instituted. So, what did the Roman Empire do? And as a matter of fact, I did some research yesterday also, and it's deep that I found out and did some research on Nero. How they claim his death was mysterious and no one found his body. Right? And you hear these stories all the time. These characters they have that's operating under their empire, and they have these shady deaths. Right? So I did some research, and so I did some research on Nero. I'm like, if I'm going to break this down, I have to figure out who was doing what. The Roman Empire, what people, how do they relate to till this day? I did some research on Nero, and it blew me away that Nero family bloodline on his mother's side linked directly to the majority of presidents we have today. Even Bill Clinton's father, because Bill Clinton, he changed his name to Clinton. His real name is Blythe. He's Jewish. And he linked directly to Nero. You have the Bush family who linked directly to Nero. So the same false flags of burning cities and blaming it on a people so that you can act, so the government could go against the population is what they've always done because their fathers did it. They burned Jerusalem, they burned their own city, claimed that we did it as a pretext to militarize Jerusalem before they took us down. All of them did the same. Same thing with Nero. Nero did it. They did something where they faked his death or something, and he ended up having children and all that. And I got some research. I'm going to bring it out. Nero, Vespasian, Titus, all the Romans who were dealing with this satanic religion had a plan against us to destroy us altogether. But it wasn't accomplished because Israel was scattered. So now they are behind closed doors. I'm speaking of the demons operating with their children to do what they couldn't finish in 70 AD. And they're going to do it in the last 7. They're doing it in the last 7 of this 50. And that's where we are. Let me show you. Let's get a few points here in Josephus to show what happened and what were their plans against us in 70 AD. Make sure you get the chapter, verses, and the pages, right? Mm-hmm. Come on.
Jump around quite a bit.
Okay.
This is the Jewish War, the Wars of the Jews, Book 2, Chapter 18, Paragraph 1.
Yes.
Now the people of Caesarea had killed the Jews that were among them on the very same day and hour when the soldiers were killed, which one would think must have come to pass by the direction of providence, insomuch that in 1 hour's time above 20,000 Jews were killed. And all Caesarea were empty of its Jewish inhabitants, for Florus caught such as ran away and sent them in bonds to the galleys. Upon which stroke that the Jews received at Caesarea, the whole nation was greatly enraged. So they divided themselves into several parties and laid waste the villages of the Syrians and their neighboring cities, Philadelphia and Sabatonus and Gerasa and Pella and Scythopolis, and after them Gadara and Hippos, and falling upon Gaulonitis, they destroyed some cities there. And some they set on fire, and then went to Cadassa, belonging to the Tyrians, and to Ptolemais, and to Gaba, and to Caesarea. Jumping over here.
Go ahead.
This is Wars of the Jews, Book 5, Chapter 13, the middle of Paragraph 7. It says, this itself was a great multitude, though this man was not himself set as a governor at the gate. Yet he was appointed to pay the public stipend for carrying these bodies out, and was so obliged of necessity to number them, while the rest were buried by their relations. Mm-hmm. Though all their burial was but this, to bring them away and cast them out of the city. After this, there ran away to Titus many of the eminent citizens, and told him the entire number of the poor that were dead, that were no fewer than 600,000, were grown or thrown out at the gates. Though still the number of the rest could not be discovered, and they told him further that when they were no longer to carry out the dead bodies of the poor, they laid their corpses on heaps in very large houses, and shut them up therein. And also that a medinus of wheat was sold for a talent, and that a while afterward it was not possible to gather herbs, by reason the city was walled about, some persons were driven to that terrible distress as to search the common sewers and old dunghills of cattle, and to eat the dung which they got there.
Now, examine this. The Romans made a way in which no food resource within that last half of that 7 years could actually get into where we were. It was too many of us for the armies to fight against us, and we were strategically in a higher place of war, which gave us the vantage point. So they couldn't just take us out. So they entrenched a gate or a border around us and made sure no food or water got in. So by default, we would begin to ravage each other, or begin to loot each other and fight against each other just to survive. And it came to a point where there was no food or resources, where people was eating people, and all these things were going on in that area. So that so that we can become weak to the point where the armies could just decimate us all together. Now let's relate it to till today. Of course, with the technology and how things are operating, we don't have our own gardens, our own food, or whatever the case is. So now they're making it illegal to grow your own food or do what you would like to do with your own resources. So now, especially in these cities, we are dependent on the government allowing trucks to bring food within our cities. We are dependent on going to the supermarket to get our daily sacrifice or our daily food. Now, what happens in a disaster in which society is broken down to the point where there's no money in the system because the stock market crashed and they say, well, we're going to do away with this altogether and we're going to socialize things where we'll have certain lines for food for those who agree with government, where no food is coming in and out of your cities or into your areas to feed you. What happens? By default, the first thing happens, the same as 78 AD, they bank on it. We're the same people, we do the same thing. They're banking on us first, turning on ourselves. Okay? They know that we're going to exterminate half the population by ourselves. Just with the scarcity that was created. It happened back then. Starvations and all these. Now imagine this. On top of that, we're dealing with the sick of our people and the diseased amongst us who are starving and who are diseased because of the pharmaceutical apparatus. So we're dealing with sick people, elderly people, people with diseases, no medicine, no medication, no nothing. No one to help because everyone is every man and woman for themselves. So now we're dying in high number. This is what happened in the last few years within that 7-year period when we fell in 70 AD. Right? Now, think about the cities we all came out of. Real quick. Right? Think about no supermarkets, no stores, no gasoline. Nothing is coming in or out. How long would your food last? Even if you stretched it out. Huh? Oh, well, then compound that with, of course, those from the UK, it's a little different. Compound that with an outside element operating within your people that have resources like gangs. They have guns already. They have weaponry. They have bullets. They have artillery. And they have a code of honor, even though it's dishonorable amongst them. Who become the rulers of that area? The unjust and the evil, like the zealots were in 70 AD. They're banking on that. The mark of the beast, when it's instituted within this 7 years, okay, it's not going to be a thing where the government is going to be forced to give this to you. When this all happened, brothers and sisters, the majority of those that are left will beg for it. When the daily sacrifice is taken away, the majority of the people will beg for it. Who's going to see their child starve? Ran by gangs. Women raped. This is what we were doing, except our people was doing it to ourselves in 70 AD. And don't tell me we're not going to do this to ourselves. Look at us. The first enemy is going to be from within. That's why the Most High told us to get out of these cities. Demons are running rapid amongst our people. Our people are disobedient and they've become evil and have turned their back from the Most High. They will be the greatest enemy when everything is shut off, when there's no lights, when there's no food. It's not the government you have to worry about initially. The government is going to come in as the saviors. Okay? It's going to be us. Imagine a neighborhood with no law and no rule, no 911, no food, no water. That's where we're going. So when it speaks of this mark of the beast, the government is not going to have to force this on our system. The system and the people are so detached and are so evil in this earth. Right now, the world is primed for the mark of the beast. We're morally corrupt. There's no more honor. There's no more love of God. There's no more respect anymore. The world is primed right now to receive the mark of the beast. Right now. All they have to do is now shut the system down. And have their military waiting on the borders and on the ends until we destroy ourselves first. And then they're going to come in as the saviors to save the few that's left. That's how the depopulation program is going to go down throughout the whole earth. Okay? And that's why there's no arguing back and forth on what's right or wrong and where people should go and what you should do. It's none of that anymore. We have to prepare people who can see, knowing that one day we're not going to be doing this like we're doing this. There will be no communication. There will be no internet. There will be no Ustream. There will be no nothing. We have to know that those that are in Christ that are amongst us are okay and that we can help each other through that last 3.5 years that will be in the earth. That must be our focus. Right? Read on.
Jumping back here, it says
some more.
It says, "As also that a medinus of wheat was sold for a talent, and that a while afterward it was not possible to gather herbs. By reason the city was also walled about."
So there was no way possible to get your own gardens of herbs. They made it where even if you had your own food, you didn't have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Read.
It also mentions that the food that was in existence was so expensive that you couldn't afford it anyway.
It was so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Even for a little thing of wheat, it was so expensive you couldn't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the first things happened during the time, the first couple of years, the first 3.5 years when it all started breaking out. In the midst of that, people loot. They take your gold, silver, they rob the old people. That's what happened in 70 AD. They take all the resources first. If any police or anyone that's operating with any level of authority, the gangs kill them all first. Okay. Say what you want. In a time of total chaos, the police will have no authority.
Mm-hmm.
See? And that's why in the last couple of bills that's been signed within the United States and other places, they have a union between military, local, and state. Military, state, and local, all departments have to operate together knowing what's coming. Because the police, the local police will have no power in this. Okay? You think about a precinct, what demographic of people, how many number of people one precinct rule? What, about a 2-mile radius or 3-mile radius? And imagine a 3-mile radius of gangs and people with guns and ready to kill people. What can one police station do? See? See, I'm bringing this into reality, speaking of what's going on within these last 7 years and what to prepare for. Now, through predictive programming, I like to bring some of those things out. They're showing you through fiction the mindset of the people to prepare you for what's to come. That's why they have movies out like The Walking Dead and all that, to show you what happens when things shut off and it's each man for himself, and you got some people out there just ready to just kill and consume everyone, and everything you get is valuable. Everything you have your hands on is valuable. Anything you can get to survive the next day is a blessing. That's why they're putting these things out for predictive programming. Because the society will fall. And it's on purpose to bring forth the mark of the beast. Go on.
It says, "Some persons were driven to that terrible distress as to search the common sewers and old dunghills of cattle, and to eat the dung which they got there.
So what happened was some people joined together and would find where the cows used to waste at, and they would use that for food. Anything, cow's dung was food during that last time period before we fell in 70 AD. Right? Go on.
And what they of old could not endure so much as to see, they now used for food. When the Romans barely heard all this, they pitied their case, while the rebellious who saw it also did not repent, but allowed the same distress to come upon themselves. For they were blinded by that fate which was already coming upon the city and upon themselves also.
Even the Romans began to pity what was going on with us, hearing the reports of what was going on amongst us. And mind you, this was for all those who didn't take heed to what Christ told them.
Mm-hmm.
Christ told them, when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, begin to flee into the wilderness. Get yourself out of there so that you can be protected outside of government imposition. You must go someplace where it's not controlled through by the city, and there's food. And where there's food. Okay? Are you following me here? Okay. Go on.
This is book 6, chapter 1, paragraph 1. Thus did the miseries of Jerusalem grow worse and worse every day, and the rebellious were still more irritated by the calamities they were under.
Now again, so that all of you are following us here. How was the daily sacrifice cut off in 70 AD? No access. No access to food or water. Right? Now they've already cut us off to some degree already. By setting a system, a monetary system to purchase products. Now that's already a go between you and your nourishment. Right? Now all they have to do is cut off that part of it. Because we've been pacified and so used to going to the store for our foods, we have cut off that innate ability to do what? To grow and fend for ourselves. That thing been cut off from us. It was a time that if you didn't grow or till the ground, you didn't eat. But we have learned, we have adjusted ourselves not even to we haven't even made that a part of our regular life to make our own resources for survival. That was on purpose. Now it's simple now. They can just now cut off that portion where your money means nothing. And now the only resources that are left amongst society is the products that's already purchased. Nothing new is coming into your system. Nothing new is coming into your city. No more trucks. No more chickens. No more food. Nothing is coming to your supermarkets. The supermarket's been looted. That's it. That's all the food that's going to come in because the government control all food resources. Right? Go on.
It says, still more irritated by the calamities they were under, even while the famine preyed upon themselves after it had preyed upon the people.
So now we know, like I've mentioned the other day, that there will be a famine. See? There will be a famine. So that's why the elite powers are storing food. That's why they're storing food. They know, according to prophecy, there will be a famine in this earth. That even the food that's available will be poisoned and work counterproductive to us and kill us. So they're storing all the resources, knowing that there's a famine within this 7-year period. Okay, there will be a famine. Monsanto and all of them on purpose have tainted the crops that now take over other crops that are good and turn them GMO. It's organic. It's not organic. It's some type of satanic Frankenstein type of science they have, like before the flood. Are you following it? Where all of creation is being tainted. Even the food has become poison. So it tells us there will be a famine. The Bible says famines and pestilences are all signs leading to the coming. But all these are aimed towards the children of God so that they can exterminate the chosen people and receive the promises of sons under Satan. That's their plan. But the Most High give us a time period in Daniel that if we make it to a certain time, within that last 7 years, we'll be okay. I'm going to show that also. Now, we're going to go through all this I've just mentioned. We're going to go through all of it. But there's a time period in which if we make it to that point, the Most High will not allow them to touch us. That's why it says, blessed is he that make it to that day. Because now we got something deeper to deal with. We have to deal with the Most High and our people within the wilderness. That's a whole nother trial in itself, but at least the governments of this earth can't touch us. Right? Read.
Jumping over to book 6, chapter 2, paragraph 1. And now Titus gave orders to his soldiers that were with him to dig up the foundations of the tower of Antonia and to make him a ready passage for his army to come up, while he himself had Josephus brought to him.
Now this is the army. This is like the president of the United States or the president of the EU giving a decree on how to attack the people now that they're being starved out. So this is government tyranny from the Roman Empire that's written in history. Now Josephus is secular history. This is not Bible history. This is history that actually happened. Rome destroyed Jerusalem. That's actual Roman history for those who don't believe in the Bible. And they're going to do the same thing again. To show you the Bible is true. The Bible prophesied this. It's that war between good and evil. This is what we must go through to receive our power as sons. See? We must go through these things. But go on.
While he himself had Josephus brought to him, for he had been informed on that very day, which was the 17th day of Panemus, or Tammuz, the sacrifice called the daily sacrifice had failed and had not been offered to God.
Daily sacrifice was taken away. How could they offer it to the Most High? Can you see? So what it's showing you is that the mark of the beast and the daily sacrifice are one and the same. When we can no longer have our resources to eat or drink, that's our daily sacrifice being taken away. And the only way to receive a daily sacrifice is to now yield our souls and our members to Satan. Mark of the beast. Okay? Go on. Give me two more.
Just one last thing. Here's book 6, chapter 3, paragraph. I'll start at 3. It says, Now of those that perished by famine in the city, the number was great, and the miseries they underwent were unspeakable. For if so much as the shadow of any kind of food did appear anywhere, or anywhere appear, a war was commenced presently.
So if there was food, if it appeared, wherever there was food, the people was looting and fighting and killing. It was a war over it. Now just imagine this. I can see it. I'm thinking about where I grew up at 15th and Diamond, in Philadelphia. I'm trying to imagine just on that block if our corner stores and our food wasn't there. You understand? And Save-A-Lots and all these and Aldi's and the supermarkets were closed. And I'm talking about the people I grew up around. I know what would go down. And this is just, if I didn't know any scripture at all, I have enough sense to know that this is not going to be good. I know who got the guns. I know who's running around crazy around here. You understand? I know what gangs are together. You understand? I know the people that don't even care about none of the people in there, in our neighborhoods. You understand? And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be wild. And here's the crazy thing about this. This is how you know this was tactful, the way they orchestrated this. They're bringing the mark of the beast in the last 7 years during a time where the majority of women don't have men in this earth amongst our people. Can you imagine what's going to happen to our sisters in these cities? And the children in these cities? Same thing in 70 AD. It was tactful how they did this. They made it where the strongest, the last point of defense is the man. They made it where the men are absent. And then they turned all the men into women. Within this last 7-year battle. This is going to be a cakewalk for Satan and his army. At least back then we were warriors. But back then, even though we went through a lot of the ill wickedness that we were dealing with, all the men were with their wives. We were family back then when we fell in the Roman Empire. Look at us now. We're helpless. Go on.
It says, and the dearest friends fell a fighting one with another about it.
Even the friends, people who loved each other, begin to betray each other and hate one another. Now I'm starting to really understand what Christ was saying, the signs of his coming, when we will betray and hate each other. Lack of food is going to do that. I'm going to tell you, a lot of people who you claim you think is your friend, the devil is going to come in them. And that's why I think the Most High, to some degree, we've learned through fasting to go without. I know how many days that I can go and still be okay. I went 7 days with totally nothing more than once. And knew that at that time that I could go more days if I wanted to. Because man cannot live off bread alone, but every word proceedeth out of the word of the Most High. Our spirit can feed us. You understand? But when people start going into their mind and start worrying, and I don't know where's the food and all that, be very leery and wary. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look, because I know, okay, that right there is going to hurt and destroy somebody. Right there, because that's it. Oh, what am I going to do? Oh my goodness. I'm like, man, what are we going to have to do with this cat? Because we ain't going to let you hurt nobody up in here. Go ahead, read.
It says, the dearest friends fell a fighting one with another about it, snatching from each other.
They started snatching from each other.
The most miserable supports of life. Nor would men believe that those who were dying had no food, but the robbers would search them when they were expiring, lest anyone should have concealed food in their bosoms and counterfeited dying. Nay.
So here it is. They thought people were faking dying to hold on to what they had. Mm-hmm. To show you how crazy our people were tripping. We start stabbing cats. Like, yeah, let's see if he's living. And then cutting open the bosom to see maybe they swallowed some diamonds or something. That's what we were doing. So imagine that's then. With none of the technologies and what we're dealing with now. And we as a people are way We are way worse than what we were in 70 AD. Okay? So that's why in these cities, there's some level of what you would call a segregation or separation. You got the suburbs and all that. I know where I lived at. All the people that are living in the suburbs and all those that are to do good or whatever, they already have guns and all that preparing for when this happened to the cities. They know the worst place to be when all this go down is the inner cities. That's going to be the worst place to be. Because if these people have no regard for each other, what are they going to do when there's nothing left? They're going to try to look for us. That's what they're thinking. Now look what happens when they, and I like to bring this real time so that we can get a real life understanding on what we're dealing with here. Look what happens every time there's a march or there's some type of a riot or whatever. What do? It's like clockwork. Okay, what time? Okay, looting starts now. We start busting windows open, taking TVs. I don't know what you're going to do with a TV in an apocalypse. But you're taking TVs, running down the street with Xboxes. You understand? And I've seen some people run that had 2 things of toilet paper on their back. And the Ferguson thing. It's like clockwork. And they go just rob every store. It's everything I'm reading right here. They're prepping us. You understand? So we have to be in the spirit and not operate and do what we see other people doing when this time comes. You can't go out there in the midst of all the confusion. That's what a few months ago we put out there. Everyone put some food and water or whatever in your house for at least a 2-3 week period in which you know you can lock your place down and secure what you have to not get in the fray when the government won't have to come in and deal with the people based on this rioting. You want to be the one on the outside with enough resources in your house to think about what the next move is getting around that chaos that's out there. Right? Read on.
It says, nay, these robbers gaped for one, and ran about stumbling and staggering along like mad dogs, and reeling against the doors of the houses like drunken men. They would also, in the great distress they were in, rush into the very same houses 2 or 3 times in one day and the same day.
They would go to one house, the same house 2-3 times. They didn't find nothing the first time, but still coming back over and over and over again. Right? Robbers. And I can see this now. And I know how the gangs operate where I grew up at. Can you imagine some of the cities? You know who's going to be running the cities for the first couple of months throughout all this? The Crips and Bloods and the drug dealers. That's it. Crips, Bloods, drug dealers, people with artillery, people with guns. And it's going to be on purpose. That's how they're going to get rid of half of the population within a city. Go on.
Moreover, their hunger was so intolerable that it obliged them to chew everything, while they gathered such things as the most sordid animals would not touch, and endured to eat them, nor did they at length abstain from girdles and shoes, and the very leather which belonged to their shields they pulled off and gnawed.
They was chewing on leather for survival. This is 70 AD. Anything they seen that they thought could be eaten, just for survival, to get some nourishment, to get from moment to moment, they did. These were they who didn't take heed to Christ's prophecies. Christ says, when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with army, flee into the wilderness. These are they who like, well, the Most High is not going to do nothing to us. Is he going to save us? He's going to, yeah, okay. The Most High is going to do what he said he's going to do. He sent your son to warn you to get away from the perils to come. The Roman Empire is looking to destroy you. If you believe that they're going to take care of you, stay. Right? Go on.
The very wisp of old hay became food to some, and some gathered up fibers and sold a very small weight of them for 4 attic or drachmas. But why do I describe the shameless impudence that the famine brought on men in their eating inanimate things? While I am going to relate a matter of fact, the like which no history relates, either among the Greeks or barbarians, it is horrible to speak of it, and incredible when heard. I had indeed willingly omitted this calamity of ours, that I might not seem to deliver what is so portentous to posterity, but that I have innumerable witnesses to it in mine own age, and besides my country would have had little reason to thank me for suppressing the miseries that she underwent at this time.
Even the land was destroyed. Go on.
There was a certain woman that dwelt beyond Jordan. Her name was Mary. Her father was Eleazar of the house of Beth-Zazab, which signifies the house of Hyssop. She was eminent for her family and her wealth, and had fled away to Jerusalem with the rest of the multitude, and was with them besieged therein at this time. The other effects of this woman have been already seized upon, such as I mean she had brought out with her out of Perea, and removed to the city, which she had treasured up besides, as also what food she had contrived to save, have been also carried off by the rapacious guards, who came every day running into her house for that purpose. This put this poor woman into a very great passion, and by frequent reproaches and imprecations she cast at these rapacious villains, she had provoked them to anger against her. But none of them, either out of the indignation she had raised against herself, or out of the commiseration of her case, would take away her life. And if she found any food, she perceived her labors were for others, and not for herself. And it was now become impossible for her to find any more food anyway. While the famine pierced through her very bowels and marrow, when also her passion was fired to a degree beyond the famine itself, nor did she consult with anything but with her passions and the necessity she was in. She then attempted a most unnatural thing, and snatching up her son, who was a child suckling at her breast, she said, O you miserable infant, for whom shall I preserve you in this war, this famine, and this rebellion? As to the war with the Romans, if they preserve our lives, we must be slaves.
She says, if they catch us, we slaves.
This famine also will destroy us even before that slavery comes upon us. Yet are these rebellious rogues more terrible than both the other.
She said, these terrible rogues, which is my own people, are worse than the Romans. She says, if the Romans catch us, we're going into slavery. But these people here are worse than the Romans. Hey, I'm just telling you right now. When this break down, the greatest enemy in these cities will be our own people. They will be the greatest enemy. They will destroy and kill their own, and everyone know it. They don't hear the word of the Most High. They don't care about what the Most High have to say. They've been programmed for this moment to do the will of the God they're following. One other thing I wanted to go. Let's go to the one in Luke real quick. And it's going to show you in Daniel's 12 what day we have to make it to out of that last 7 years.
St. Luke chapter 21, verse 20.
Yes.
In fact, let's start at verse 19. St. Luke chapter 21, verse 19.
Go ahead.
In your patience possess ye your souls.
In your patience possess ye your souls.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies,
when you shall see a military imposition within your city,
then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
go ahead.
Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains.
Flee to the mountains. At this time in 70 AD, our people fled to the Atlas Mountains. Went into Africa, into parts of Morocco and different parts of Africa, and began to go into what the Bible calls the wilderness, which is called Africa today. Read.
Verse 21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance.
For these be the days of vengeance. Go on.
That all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days.
Like the woman written of in Josephus. Woe to them for a woman that give child and that give suck in those days. Read.
For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
Speaking of the Roman Empire, the Roman sword. Our people fell by the edge of the sword, didn't take heed to Christ, and stayed and got destroyed. Read.
And shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden.
Hold up, and they shall be what?
Led away captive into all nations.
And eventually we became slaves, fulfilling the prophecies of Deuteronomy 28 and what Christ is speaking of here. Our slavery was prophesied due to the disobedience of our forefathers and the sin that came with Adam. All that must be washed away so that we can now receive the promises of sons. See? But we had to fulfill what was written. We got the law that led to life, and we chose to go the other way. And it led to what? The fall of the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel, throughout the four corners of the earth. Go on.
Shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
Of the Gentiles until what?
Until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So that's why the Gentiles and the Jewish people have a clock. They have a time to rule. And it's about to be fulfilled. But during the last 7 years of that fulfillment will be the worst time our people have ever had on earth. What they call in church the final tribulation is not the tribulation of the church. What they're claiming. It's the tribulation of those slaves who were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. They're looking to depopulate and exterminate us like the Egyptians did while we were in Egypt, before the Most High saved us out of there. See? Last piece. To show you that it was prophesied. I'm putting that out there because this is what Christ said. And for those who didn't follow, we see their end. Right? We see what happened to them, right? Now, and I'm putting that out there because people who have listened to what we've been bringing for years may not believe or may feel a certain type of way or whatever the case is and decide they don't want to hear what the Most High is saying. You know what? We did our part. If they don't believe what's being taught is true, they will see that it's true. But they'll be on the wrong side of these prophecies. Let's show you how much time we must make through that last 7 years. Let's go to Daniel 12 and 9. Now I'm putting this out there. I mentioned this on the radio show. That I mentioned it this Wednesday on the radio show, that most people are looking at what's going on with CERN, what's going on with the Pope visit in Philadelphia, the United States, what's going on with the guy who said last year that there's going to be a great climate change coming this September and all that. And everyone is looking at what the bank systems is going on and whether or not the economy will crash. And they can't tie all these things together. They're just looking at these individual things and knowing they're talking about the Shemitah, which the Jewish people knew for years, but now all of a sudden they're going to just talk about this as if it's some newfound revelation. But really, it's a counting of Jubilees to what they, under their powers, believe is the destruction of our people. The Jubilees of the Bible is saying that, yes, we would go through this destruction, but we will come out on the other side if we're purified and holy and come back to the Most High. So it's two prophecies compassing each other for the same purpose. They think that the extermination is going to cut off at a certain point. They have a certain amount of time to rule for the time of the Gentiles. And if we kill them all, then none will be left. Therefore, the prophecies concerning our judgment will be thwarted. That's what they're teaching in the Luciferian doctrine. That yes, it is prophesied that these people will go through tribulation. But what if we kill them all during the time we have to rule? Is there a chance for us? So the only point of existence for them, or any hope for them, is our extermination. And they understand based on the clock how long they have. So they're going to ramp it up. They say, yes, it's prophesied that we're going to take them down like 70 AD, but we have to make sure they don't make it through this time. They can't make it through. If they make it through, they're going to get to a point where we can't touch them. So that's what the depopulation program is about. That's what the climate change is about. That's what their Shemitah is about. A time period in which they can destroy the seed of the woman before she fulfills her point in prophecy, her place in prophecy as the children of the Most High again. That's that battle. That's that war. And there's a time period on this. Christ even calls it the time of the Gentiles. That must be fulfilled. We must make it past that time. Right? So we got that time encompassed with what? The 6,000 years from Adam up until what? The last 7 years or the last 50 years or Jubilee. That 50 years ended their time of the Gentiles, where now it's ticking down, and then the Most High began to wake us up. And in 2 days I'll revive them, and in the third day they shall live in my sight. So at the end of that, in that last 50, that's when Israel all over the earth began to realize and wake up and saying, well, hold up. I'm not black or African American. I'm Israel. I'm an Israelite. Oh, I'm not Puerto Rican. I'm an Israelite. Oh, I'm not Jamaican. I'm not English. I'm an Israelite. You understand? So now the Most High fulfilled his part at the end of that 2 days. At part of those 2 days, he must awaken us so that we can now understand this battle. And say, okay, we're in a race. We've been destroyed. I'm living. I'm whole. I made it through this. How do I make it past this time of the Gentiles? How do I make it past the point from where they destroy us? Now, a lot of our people is not going to make it past this point because we're in perilous times, and they love the evil they're in. They love the sin. They're unrepentant. They love the world the way it is. They're not going to make it. They're primed for destruction. Only a remnant or a small number will actually get through this. Right? Let's go to Daniel's 12.
Daniel chapter 12, verse 9.
Yes.
And he said, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end.
To the time of the end, go on.
Verse 10, many shall be purified.
That means many shall be baptized. Now, when it says purification, the Most High sent that example by having John baptize Yeshua. And says, unless you're baptized, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. That purification is a new entry. Only those that actually go through this will make it into this kingdom to come. Right? Read.
Many shall be purified and made white.
And made white.
And tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly.
But the wicked of our people is going to continue to be wicked. There's nothing we can do about that. Go on.
And none of the wicked shall understand but the wise shall understand.
What's the angel saying? What is the Spirit saying here? That only the wise will understand what? The prophecy is concerning what he's showing Daniel right here. The end times. How long we have. What to do to get out of it. Only the wise would be looking for a place of repentance. And an atonement with the Most High. Only the wise would understand that this world done went to hell and we need a Savior. We need a light. Only the wise will understand that there's an element in the air that's going to change everything. And actually feel that they want to be a part of doing something about it. Only the wise. It's one thing to see what's going on and think you're hopeless. And I think it's only two sides of this. The hopeless ones and the ones that see it and say, you know what? I can do something. You understand? It's only either you feel that you can do something or you're hopeless. There's only two sides to this. So you tried, you're baptized, you understand what's going on. Right? And now you're doing what? You're putting forth works for this kingdom. You're preparing. Why do you think the Most High is giving us this? And understanding what happened in 70 AD. So that we don't fall victim to those who didn't follow Christ before. You understand? I'm going to tell you, our people in 70 AD and all these people we read that got destroyed was totally confident that the Most High was with them. A lot of them felt that the Most High would never do this to them. But only those that followed Christ and was purified had the understanding on what to do. They knew that Israel would become desolate again. And I want to talk about that in a moment based on that. Something else I want to bring out. But go ahead.
Verse 11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days.
There shall be 1,290 days. That's a little bit past what? 3.5 years. That's that last 3.5 of the 7. See? It's because we're counting in Jubilees now, right? So we got that last 7. So the time that it's set up is what? In that 7. 1,290 days gave us a time point within that last 7 that the mark of the beast would be established. And guess who's setting it up as we speak? Who's setting the whole platform in the world to receive it right now? It's going to happen with the Pope. Everything they were looking to institute from the beginning that would mean our extermination and the setting up of Satan being worshipped in this earth is about to happen. The Pope is now about to put his satanic stamp on it. To let them know it's time. Okay, the Pope is not the Pope. He don't live in himself. There's a demon that went from Pope, that goes from Pope to Pope, that was here from the beginning. It's actually a demon from Satan that goes from Pope to Pope. And that's the Babylonian ritual that they do. It's not the Pope speaking. It's not him. He don't live there no more. Okay? He's a host for a demon that was operating from the beginning. And these are the same priests that was over the Roman Empire that was giving them direction on how to kill and destroy us. The same priests. They were the Romans. Okay? Go on.
Verse 12.
So we know that we got, it's 1,290. Now that we have a time stamp on times of Jubilees and Sabbaths, we now can count the last within the last 7 right here. It's going to be set up within the last 7, what? 1,290 days. But if we haven't been keeping the Sabbath on that time schedule the Most High was talking about, how would we know the times of the Jubilees and how to calculate this? So he had to give us the calculation of time first, so that we'll understand where we are according to prophecy and warn the people. Let them know to be prepared. Because when it hit, it's going to happen, and no one can say that they weren't warned. And where we are at that time when it happens, brothers and sisters, in the spirit, is where we'll be. What we prepare for and do and how we interact and what we're not going to change all of a sudden with circumstance. If we don't prepare ourselves spiritually for what's going to happen, that's the mindset you're going to be in when everything hits the fan. So if you're not in Scripture, and this is nobody's responsibility outside of each individual. If you're not where the Most High want you to be, that's not going to be my fault. Everyone have an individual responsibility to get themselves right and atone for anything they've been dealing with to be right in this time. Because that's the Spirit that's going to guide us through this. It's not going to be no one man like Moses with a stick saying, follow me. It doesn't work that way. Our sins will be our accusers in those days. And we will be judged according to those sins on the spot with the element that Satan is going to create in this earth. And the Most High is going to let this happen. He's going to allow it. He says, be purified, right? Be cleansed. So now we got the protection and hedge of the Holy Spirit. All we have to do is nourish that now to get through. Right? Read on.
Verse 12. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh.
And cometh to the what?
To the 1,305 days.
So we have to make it to the 1,335th day within the 7 years. To let you know that we have to make it about a month and a half past this. The majority of the people will be exterminated. So it's speaking of the mark of the beast being instituted, right? Within that 3.5 years, that's 1,290 days. And then a time period in which those that need to be protected in the wilderness must be around those areas we'll be gathered from. Are y'all following that? If you're in these cities that was actually made as a replica of those empires that destroyed us in 70 AD, they constructed the cities a certain way for this time. So that they can now cut the people off, process them, and those that don't want to comply be killed. All the cities were set up with this in mind. Every major city out there have what? They have football stadiums and stadiums all throughout these cities, and you think it's for sport. These will be the last processing places for each city to process the people. For those that don't want to follow, they'll be taken and killed, and for those that want to follow, they will get the mark of the beast. They need these stadiums all over the earth in these cities for processing thousands of people. It's not for sport. It's not what you think it's for. And I was looking at this a couple of weeks ago, and I see that all the football stadiums within the United States have a contract with Homeland Security to be used in the state of emergency. Every last one of them. Every last one of them. So now, when people go to the sporting arena, this terrorist thing they're claiming, that terrorism and all this, now people are being checked going into stadiums the same as the airports. What is this doing? It's getting you used to the process of going to the stadium and being processed. They have it in place. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not saying this one piece. This is what Barack Obama said. Barack Obama said, when they asked him, well, what do you care about what's going on with Israel and Iran? He says, well, personally, I'm more concerned with something nuclear going off in New York. Why would he say he's more concerned about something no one even asked about? And when these things happen in New York, they will move the UN back to Europe. The whole banking system will be collapsed. This ain't going to be no 911 scenario. And then what happens when all the monies and all that, it's going to be chaos throughout the whole United States if something like that happens. And they're going to bring forth the mark of the beast. And it's going to be hell on our people, not just in America. They're going to use this as a platform. I'm speaking of the EU and the UN to make a world body, governing body over the earth. And that mark of the beast that they're going to use to process the people who are in distress in America will after that be distributed, and that will be the law of the earth. That's what's coming. They're going to bring forth that mark of the beast where no man could buy or sell. But we have to make it 1 month and a half past that time into the areas the Most High said he's going to gather us from. Okay? Do y'all understand?
God.
One last piece that I wanted to bring forth. And I'm going to go into it next week. Remind me to go into it. We have people that I know who are thinking or claiming that in order to be saved, they should go into Israel, into the state of Israel. Mind you, the state of Israel is only a piece of what the ancient Israel was. It's only an American state, a European state, an American state made in the Middle East. I'm going to tell you straight like it is. Okay? If you go into Israel before the coming of Christ, because the total desolation of Israel hasn't happened yet. It tell you in scriptures, and I'm going to go into it next week, that Christ will actually prepare the land that's brought back from the sword for us to go into. Which means, if you go into Israel without the Messiah first coming and guiding you into Israel, you will be utterly wasted and destroyed. Because the Jewish powers that's in Israel today will not be in Israel. They know when this war happens against Iran, that Iran will be utterly eradicated, and the people in Israel, the citizens, will be a sacrifice to the satanic elite's gods. It tell you that the kings of Israel, the kings of Edom, they're going to flee back into Chittim, which is Cyprus, on their way back to Europe. They're going to leave. All the people that they had flooding to Israel are going to be a sacrifice to their God. And any of our people who are going back into Israel, like the Ben Amis and all of them that have been doing that, they don't even believe in Christ. Only those that don't believe in Christ are going there. You will be destroyed if you're in those borders in that day. Okay? We'll be gathered in the areas of Isaiah 11. It tells us where we will be gathered from. If you're in the state of Israel, or in that land, and Christ didn't lead you there, you better leave, or you will be destroyed in that land. And I'm going into that next week. Going to Israel will be utterly wasted by nuclear fire coming from Iran. So I know there's people over there trying to tell people, yeah, come over to the Holy Land. We're going to show you where the ruins are. Let me tell you, you all will be ruined if you're in that land. It's going to be a continuation of what happened in 70 AD. All right? And all those people, because guess what? They make you believe on TV and on these TBN satanic pagan Christian channels that holiness is going on in Israel. Okay? Let me tell you, they got a sodomite strip. Let me tell you, you got pimps over there. You got women, huh? Yeah, they got a red light district where you can go where they can pick up. They're doing pedophile rings. They're doing organ harvesting. You name it. Homosexuality. They evil as I don't know what in Israel. Okay, it's an extension of the satanic Babylon. The only problem they have in Israel is us. The fact that a lot of us went there. But I'm going to tell our brothers and sisters, when it says flee Babylon, you better include Israel in that too and get up out of there. Christ, the Messiah, the true Messiah, will lead us back. The land must stay desolate until we're led in by our king. You're not going to be there before the king and say, yeah, I was just waiting for you. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. Okay? Beginning next Sunday, all right, we are going to add in, as part of one of the lessons, the teaching that we did called The Secrets of the Time will also be one of the lessons to break down and calculate the time and the holy days. So that will be there, because we don't want brothers and sisters leaving the academy and by that they leave without understanding what the holy days are, how to calculate the holy days. And by doing so, they've been going to these other sites that's going back into the moon and all that. And they've been going right back into Babylonian, pagan, satanic Israel teachings. Okay? So we need you, when you leave the academy, to know how to worship the Most High. When is the Sabbath? When is the holy days established? So we're going to do that, make that a part of the academy's lesson. So we're going to add that in. All right. Another thing is we're going to also have the biblical PDF with the Most High's name through it, where it can be researched book by book, chapter by chapter. Okay, so that has been done through the church. We're going to let you know through the website how to get it. And for those that participate in the academy, we'll send you out the option to purchase that PDF if you would like to have that to read along with the academy. That's your option. It's entirely up to you. So the academy do start next week, next Sunday, which is September 27th. And we really suggest you get in early. Send an email to gatheringas1 and not try to do it the last moment. Send in your email, let us process it. It's a long process between now, and we're working every day with it. So the earlier you send it, we'll let you know how to go about the payment, and then we'll make sure you're in early. We have the Hebrew and history with Elder Lawyer. Then me and Shapat come in with the news, and then afterwards myself and Elder Lawyer comes through with the lesson for that particular day. It's every Sunday. It starts at 9 a.m. And it's a lot of work that goes into it. You get the PDF sent to you, all the information, the links, everything on how to do it. And even if you can't participate, if you work on Sundays, we still afford an opportunity for you to get the link and see it on your spare time. So if you don't see it Sunday, you still have the information during the week. So if that's what you would like, send an email again to gatheringas1, that's the number 1 at AOL.com. All right? With that, I'm going to answer a few questions here. Let's see. All right. Okay, the chat is open. Any of y'all have any questions? Oh, they're coming in like crazy. A moment. Can you please briefly list all the holy days and what they represent according to Christ? Okay, you would need to go to our webpage, gatheringofchrist.org, and click on Holy Days. And that can be easily answered for you through the website, gatheringofchrist.org. And which set of fallen angels are still roaming free? Well, when it says fallen angels, when you say which ones are fallen, still roaming free, it tell you then after that, when it tell you that the angels fell in Genesis, and then after that, those that fell on the other side of the flood are still roaming. Their names, I don't have their names. Okay, the ones that were bound are named in the book of Enoch. But these, I don't know the names. I just know that they fell according to Scripture. What's that?
The ones for Satan in the first fall, or the ones for Satan.
Yeah, the ones that were in the first fall slept with women and bare forth children, which was Azazel in them, Simjaza in all them, and they were bound. Okay? It says Brando K 0402. Praise the Most High for another Sabbath, and thank you, elders, for your works. How do you go about getting visas for other countries? Does having debt to school loans and credit cards affect being able to get one? I will go to the elders with planning, but I was curious about this. Well, just like anything, it's the same way. I don't know if you travel, but it's not hard at all. Just like if you were taking a trip on a vacation to Cancun or a vacation to Jamaica. Usually when you bring your passport to any respective country, a visa is stamped upon entry. And no, they're not checking your loans or whatever to give you a visa to be in their country. Now usually it's a temporary, what you would call vacation type of temporary visa, because usually people go back home. But when you're in a country, you can always speak to immigration and ask them what is their laws and staying longer or whatever the case may be. But the only thing I know about the loans and things is that I know that now the IRS is going to start tying in debt, making it where people can't get their passports all together. But if you have your passport, your debt is not going to stop you from getting a visa to travel to another country. I hope that answered your question. Oh yeah, we have to do Simeon too. That's right. Thank you. So what we'll do is we'll do Simeon and Issachar next week, then Asher and Zebulun. All right? Follow. Tawada, so much for everything you do. This is Zach Butler. It's truly a blessing. Praise the Most High. I have one question. Please, can you break down Isaiah 51 through 5? What is a eunuch? A eunuch is a person, like, sometimes you have a eunuch who's castrated. A person, a man who's been castrated and used over what you would call a king's harem. So they used to do that so that the man don't have no desires towards dealing with the king's women. That was one form of a eunuch. The other form of a eunuch is a brother who chooses not to deal with a woman at all and only serve the Most High. That's another form of eunuch. Okay? Go on. Isaiah 56, 1 through 5. Yeah.
Isaiah.
Someone asked, can we add the 42 months as the 3.5 years in the book of Revelations? Absolutely. Again, you're getting it now. Now you're putting all that in the context of the Jubilees and the last 7 years. Yes. See? That 42 months is what? 3.5 years. That 3.5 years is half of 7. So yes. All right. What's this in Isaiah 56, 1 through 5?
Isaiah 56 and 1. Thus saith the Lord, keep ye judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold to it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil.
So when it says keeping the Sabbath from polluting it, you have to realize the Sabbaths are not just the weekly Sabbaths. Polluting the Sabbath is actually doing things of your own acquaintance instead of observing the Most High on that day. But what happens with the holy days, which are also Sabbaths, and you begin to follow it according to the moon and not according to the original way of dealing with Sabbaths, as far as holy days, you will begin to pollute the high holy days of the Most High. It's not just the moon. The moon came in during Babylonia, and because you cannot use the moon to calculate the years. Why? Because the moon is 354 days, and it comes in 10 days too early each year. Therefore, it totally distorts time, and your holy days will fall off. All holy days are calculated through Sabbaths, counting of 7 to 7, 7 to 7, 7 to 7, 52 Sabbaths in a year, and your holy days are between that 52 Sabbaths. All right? So you got the first Sabbath, then you have the second Sabbath, which is on Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, which is your Passover. Then you have to count 50 days from that, and that gives you what? First fruit. See how calculating the Sabbaths keep you on the Sabbaths. On and on and on and on. Okay? What else? Finish reading what you have there.
Verse 3.
Go ahead.
Neither let the son of the stranger that hath joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, the Lord hath utterly separated me from his people.
So here it is. The son of the stranger is Gentiles. If they follow the Most High, they will have an opportunity to be a part in this kingdom. If they follow the true God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. Go on.
Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree.
Because usually a eunuch made a choice not to have a wife or children. See? Read.
Verse 4. For thus saith the Lord unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant, even unto them will I give in mine house and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters.
Exactly. So people have people to do what? To continue their name. That's why people will procreate, to keep their existence and their name in the earth. Well, a eunuch who decided not to have a family will have an eternal name in the kingdom. See that? All right, let's go to the next question. Very good lesson today, guys. Thank you. That's hit 1, 2, 3. Let me ask, the past holy day that just passed was a Jubilee. No, it wasn't a Jubilee. Okay, it wasn't a Jubilee. Let's make that clear. They're calculating their Shemitahs, but not on course. Okay? It would make it where that was the beginning of the last 7 years of the 6,000. Okay? It's not a Shemitah. It's not a 50th year. Because that would tell us, based on this time, if this was a Shemitah according to them, that means we would have 50 years left. And we don't. What's next?
Someone says, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Simeon, and Dan are the tribes you have left to cover.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Someone says, understanding that our time is short before all these evils take place.
Okay, so there was a second half to this. So are we going into that 7 years now? Yes, we are. Is a Day of Atonement on the 21st sundown? Yes, the 21st sundown is a Day of Atonement. Yes.
Someone says, understanding that our time is short before all these evils take place, is it wise for our wives to become pregnant today?
The Bible says, woe to them that give suck in those days. By the same token, brothers and sisters, even though we would like to give advice on that, when it comes to family, the husband and wife must determine what's right for their home. We can't suggest whether or not you should have children. You have to make a decision on what you deem is right for your household. Okay?
Will we have the ark in the wilderness?
Yes, we will.
Is it possible that when you do the Hebrew class, the people that just finished are able to go through that lesson for a small fee?
Is it possible that when you do that Hebrew class, that people that just finished are able to go through the lesson for a small fee? What do you mean by that?
I assume if they've already been through it, can they come back in for a smaller fee?
Well, the whole thing is, it's all encompassed into one. We don't break up the academy in fragments. So the small fee would be the small fee we're already charging for a lot of work, which is the 50 denomination of wherever you live at per month. That's very small. That's less than $1.50 a day. To get a higher level of learning and personable work afforded to you, that you could never get in these schools and theologian colleges that people are paying hands and fists to go into. Okay? So it's only $50 a day. I mean, $50 per month. Okay, to get the Hebrew, history, and it's no two academies are the same. You're getting the lessons and everything. So that's as small as it can go, because there's a lot of work and processing that happen behind the scenes. The academy, even though we come to you for one day out of the week, it's a 7-day-a-week work to make sure it happens. Okay, so we can't break it into fragments. I mean, we're already running around and dealing with all types of stuff, just trying to keep it like it is, without, bringing forth another element that would mean more work. All right, what's that? What's next?
The yellow pages. One says, I've cried maybe 2 real times in the past 5 years. One of them is when I read 2nd Maccabees on how we treated each other and what happened to our people during the siege. We need to understand that these things will happen again. History repeats itself. Shalom.
That's true. Brother Tony 333 says, Tawada, Elder Ricard, and Elder Lawyer, awesome lesson. Love how you brought it. All praises be to the Most High. Judah Trisman. Hold up. Okay, Judah Trisman, I'm going to hold your question because we answered a question for you earlier. So let me answer these and get back with you.
It's actually same question.
Same question. Okay, that's good then. Go ahead. Or is there a baptism coming up in New York City? Well, Elder Gabar will be on shortly. You can pose the question to him. But yes, we are making baptisms where if you're in respective areas, you can come through New York, Canada, all the areas on the East Coast, and we're going to try to get that together where everyone receive their entry into this work so that we can fight in these last times together. Spiritually, that is. What's that? What's next?
Someone says, when we are in terms of the 7 years, or when does it start?
Well, you have to realize when time, you got 2 separate scenarios. You got the beginning of festivals, which usually start on September. That's how the Jewish people calculate. Okay, you got that in Josephus, where the calculation for festivals, for the beginning of the festival year, it's in September, which is the 7th month. But the regular course of year begins in the spring. Okay? So you have 2 different beginning of years. The beginning of festivals start in the 7th month. But the beginning of the regular cycled year begins in spring. You have it?
You can see it says, the law requires that out of the public expenses of a lamb of the first year shall be killed every day at the beginning and ending of the day. But on the 7th day, which is called the Sabbath, they kill 2 and sacrifice them in the same manner. Jumping down here, it says, but on the 7th month, which the Macedonians call Hyperberatius, they make, in addition to those already mentioned, and sacrifice a bull, a ram, and 7 lambs, and a kid of the goats for sins. On the 10th day of the same lunar month, they fast until the evening, and this day they sacrifice a bull, 2 rams, and 7 lambs, and a kid of the goats for sin. And besides these, they bring 2 goats, 2 kids of the goats, the one which is sent alive out of the limits of the camp into the wilderness for the scapegoat, and to be an atonement for the sins of the whole multitude. But the other is brought into a place of great cleanness within the limits of the camp, and is there burnt, with its skins without any sort of cleansing.
No, I need the one that tells you that, it's the beginning of the year for festivals. That's the one I need. In Josephus. Don't worry about it. I'll get that some other time. We can break that down some other time. All right, don't worry about that. All right, someone asked, if 70 weeks have been determined, and then 70 times 50 is 3,500, why is it the last week does not equal 50, but 7? You have to realize, again, like I broke down, it breaks down all of the weeks, and then it breaks down the last 7 years out of that 50 at the very end. What will happen? Okay? So that 3.5 years is that last 7. If we did it the way you were saying, then we will be beyond that 6,000 years, when we only got 6,000 years determined. So it goes into that last 50. Then it goes into that last 7 of that 50. Okay? What's next here? Yeah. We only got 2 more questions. All right. Thawada. All praises be to the Most High. Last question. Have you seen in recent mainstream news that they have lifted Iran's sanctions regarding nuclear weaponry? Yes, I've seen that. But that's all part of the element of Israel now saying that they're upset. And because that, they'll work unilaterally to strike Iran, whether America want to or not. So that's all, what you would call, it's 2 of the same people playing on either side, America and Israel, to make you think they're separate. Okay? But all in all, Israel is going to use that as a pretext to strike Iran, and America will defend their ally within the Middle East. And that's when it all breaks out. That's when hell begins on earth. When it comes to that last war written of in Isaiah 13, where it tells you that the Persians will come against Babylon, the daughter of Babylon. With that, we're going to say the Lord's Prayer, and thank you all, and I will see you in the academy next week, all right?